All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Shriven. Welcome to the virtual workshop for Python series. So me and Thad will take over the next few weeks for the Python workshop, and then this is the part 1. We will be having the part 2 shortly over the next, I think, after next week, right? But yeah. Thanks for tuning in. If you're a freshman, welcome to Rutgers, and we're hoping you will have a nice semester. I know it's not the way you wanted it, but hopefully spring semester is always there for hope. But yeah, let me see if I can turn on my video. Can you guys see me? Hi. Yeah, so that's me. My name is Shriven, and yeah, so let's get started. So a quick introduction of myself. I'm currently an incoming junior, double majoring in finance and BATE, and double minoring in stats and health admin. A couple of hobbies of mine are I love cars, music, soccer. I've been learning cooking and photography during the quarantine, and I'm also like trying to learn DJing too. So yeah, that's a fun fact about me. I speak fluent French. I lived over 5 countries. Yeah. So let's, in terms of introducing Python, you've been hearing Python a lot, especially now. Everything is moving into coding. So object-oriented programming, Python is an object-oriented programming, just like Java, and it defines classes and methods, and you can call it on later on. So we'll talk over that during the demo. But it's very simple and powerful. It's an easy to learn language, and there's so many less restrictions in terms of really coding. It's also very accessible and compatible. What I mean by that is that like you can code games even through your phone using Python. So that's really cool. I literally use Python on my phone just to code for fun, even on the Rutgers bus. But yeah. And talking about data types, here's a couple rundown. I think a lot of you guys are familiar with this if you guys took previous comp sci courses. But a quick rundown is, integers are typical integers. You probably learned in your math class, whole numbers, which are 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, or anything which is negative. Floating, also they call it float. It's all of them are decimals, so 1.17, 2.25, or 100. Strings are basically just text. Hello, Python 2. You can, like, obviously whenever you refer to a string, you can either use 2 quotation marks or 1 quotation mark. Lists and list dictionaries, tuples, sets, they're all a sort of a data structure. We'll go more into those in depth during the actual demo, but essentially they're just some ways of organizing a large sum of data. Boolean, true or false. So these are really the type of questions. These are really the type of statements that coding actually uses. So it's either could be true or false. So if a true statement passes on, then it can go into something else. And then if a false statement passes on, then you can execute something else. So yeah. And I actually forgot to introduce one of the other co-hosts. There are 2 co-hosts actually, Bhakti Patel and also Thad. We're all like, there's some other BITS members too in the workshop today, but we're basically the tech team, and this is Business Information Technology Society at Rutgers. So yeah, and I currently serve as a tech development chair. So if Bhakti and Thad, if you guys would like to unmute and introduce yourselves really quick.
Hi everyone. My name is Thad. I am the Bits webmaster. I'm going to be sitting on in the workshop and monitoring the chat room for any questions. So if anyone has any, outstanding or immediate questions during Shriven's demonstration, feel free to drop the question in the chat room, and I'll type up a response ASAP. Thanks.
Bhakti, did you introduce? Is everyone good? No, we can't hear you, Bhakti. All right. I guess, yeah. So let's just proceed on to the next part. So yeah, here's what you've all been waiting for. It's the demo time. So let's just click the demo. So here I'm currently running on Jupyter Notebook. Can you all see this? Can you all see this? My bad, I'm sorry. Okay. All right, cool. So here I'm running on Jupyter Notebook. It's really one of those interfaces where you can use Jupyter, where you can use Python and you can code Python on it, and kind of looks like a Google Drive interface for me. But yeah, it's something that I use. I recently got onto it. Before I used to use Idle. I would highly recommend that, but I just heard that this has a lot of features to work on. So yeah. But yeah, let's get started. I'm gonna turn off my video, and then so you guys can just get a better look at the actual code. So when I first start off any Python worksheet, I tend to just print a simple statement, print, and type in hello world, right? So obviously this inside, since we have double quotes surrounding it, we're claiming that this is a string, right? And all I can do is run it, and then now it says hello world. So that is, I just like to get that normal statement out first whenever I start any worksheet, just to make sure that Python is running and we're good to go. Let's just call this worksheet workshop. Right. So whenever you're naming a notebook or any kind of text file for Python, make sure you guys don't have any spaces in it. Either use like an underscore or like a dash type of thing. So when you guys execute it, you just don't have to go through the hassle of pressing space and it doesn't go through. But yeah, I'm assuming that most of you guys are really new to coding. So this part one is really going to talk about the basics, and Thad is going to go over on Python part two, like the more advanced part. All right. So what if I were to print? So print is a word where you use to execute your code, right? So that's what your output's going to be, right? So what if I just said hello world? It's not going to run, right? So you get an error message right there. So obviously it tells you your syntax error, which is invalid syntax. So if we were to fix this, we can just use your two quotation marks. Oh, right. And also you can also do your simple operators, right? So 2 plus 2, 4, 3 times 2, that's 6. You can also do 4 minus 6, negative 2. You can also do 2 exponents. So for exponents, you can do 2 asterisk signs to the power. So that means 2 to the power of 3, and then that'll get you 8. If you did 5%, 2, 3. So modulus, so the percent sign is supposed to be modulus. That usually returns the remainder if you were to divide 5 by 3, right? So you're going to get 2 in this case. What else? There's also division, right? So 27 divided by 6, right? You're going to get 4.5. What if I set 27 2 slashes by 6? So this is just going to give you, like, excluding your remainder is just going to give you your normal quotient. And the whole point of the Floyd division is to kind of return an integer value. Yeah, and also quick, guys, if I'm like through the demo, if I am going too fast or too slow, please let me know. And if you guys have any questions while I'm coding, like why this, why that, feel free to ask on the chat. Usually Thad and Bhakti kind of they ran down this presentation and workshop with me, so they could be answering your questions. And another feature I would like to talk about is every Python package comes with a pre-set package. And what do I mean by that? So for this, it comes with a math package. So you don't even really need to code if you want to find a factorial of something, right? So how would you find a factorial of something? So you can use import math, right? And what you're going to happen is you're importing the math package, right? So this is an automatic module that comes with Python. And what you can do is literally do math.py, right? And then you can press Shift Enter and you're going to get your math. You're going to get your pi. What if you did, so let's look at this website here. So this is a math, all the operators that comes in the math package of Python. So this is a attached document on the PowerPoint, and this literally talks about just a bunch of different modules you can use in the math package. So let's just go with the factorial right now. So in the factorial one, you see math.factorial, and inside the parentheses, you have an x value, right? So this x value is just representing one parameter, right? So what you're saying is just that you need only one number to basically make this executed, right? If you were to look at something else like fmod or GCD, you need a and b. So you need at least 2 integers to run that, right? So let's just do GCD. Oh, let me do out of that. So let me just do GCD and factorial. So let's do factorial first. So math.factorial in parentheses 5, right? So now you're going to get your output as 120. What if you did math.gcd? I don't know, let's do 20 and 32, right? So that's GCD basically means greatest common factor. I'm sure you guys remember that from your math classes in high school. But yeah, so obviously you get returned at 4. That's your greatest common divisor, right? So that's what exists as part of the import math module. And also there is a cool feature on Python where you can do input, right? So what does this mean is that when I press Shift Enter, I can basically type it in and it's going to give me a value, right? So I can say, what do I mean by that, right? So if I were to say print hello world, right? And I can say input Shriven, right? So now I'm going to expect Shriven to pop in, and then it's going to literally ask me, what do you want to type with that, right? So I can say input hello world or hello plus, right? Let's make that. That's going to come out really nice. So, right. Or I could say something like this, right? So I could say I could set a variable to the I could set a variable called hello world, and I could say print x, right? So I'm gonna get hello world, right? What if I were to say this, right? X equals well, x equals input. And we're going to say print I wanted to basically say hello and then I want it to say like whatever you put in, right? So let's just make this execute, and then I'm gonna say, see, hello Shriven. So yeah, input feature is really cool. I personally really like it. I use it a lot. So yeah. And we can also talk about variables play a huge part in Python. So if you want to talk about, how to switch a variable, so we can say that x is equal to 2. We can say y is equal to 3. And what you can do is set a temp variable, so temporary variable that you can assign. Say, let's just make this 3 equal to y, right? So what you're saying here is that x equals to 2 and y equals to 3, right? So basically x and y, they have a numbers assigned. But now what you're saying is that z is equal to y, right? So that means z is also equal to 3, right? So we're going to make that happen. Well, first, let's just see. Print x and y. So you're going to get 2 for x and 3 for y, right? Now, what we're going to do is we're going to make z equals y. And what is print z? What are you going to get for this? You're going to get 3, right? So now what we're going to do is we're going to also make y equal to x, right? So what we basically want to do now is I want to switch my value for y and x, right? So now what I'm doing is I'm making y equals x. So that's going to give me print y. And then now I'm going to get 2, right? So my y is equal to 2. And now we can make our temp variable equal to z, right? Our x equal to z, right? So in this case, now what we're going to have is 3. So now our x is equal to 3, right? So now what if I were to print out both of them? So x comma y. Right? So now notice what we did. We basically switched these two numbers, right? So now x is equal to 3 and y is equal to 2. For my fellow friends who are taking foundations or intro to comp sci soon, right? This is one of the commonly asked questions on all your exams or most of your exams, right? How do you switch two variables? So yeah, so kind of practice this, but yeah. And understanding how casting works is really important. And also, really quick, using a hashtag basically means you're just pressing like a comment, right? So I can say, this workshop is fun. Well, is it really fun though? I don't really know. You tell me. I'm a pretty funny guy. But yeah, and also the 3 quotation marks. The 3 quotation marks means like a multi-line text, right? So I can say, hi there. How are you doing today? Right? And if I were to press Shift Enter, or run this, right? Well, I'm not really getting any output. It's just that when I'm actually running this code, Python knows that this is a text message, but if I were to get something like this is a real output, and I'm really not getting that, right? So if I were to just say print hello world again, I'm just gonna get hello world, none of my text message right here, right? And yeah, talking about data types. So now talking about data types is really huge because what you can do with data types is you can switch these data types, and that's called casting, right? So casting means that you can switch an integer to a float number, right? So you can assume that float and strings are not really restrictive, right? Integer is more restrictive, right? So it's like saying 2.3 could be a float, but it cannot be an integer. But 2 can be known as a float, an integer, and a string, right? So let's look at it like this, right? So print, we're gonna say print type 2. Right? So I'm expecting that this is going to say a class integer, right? And that's what we're going to see. This is an integer. What if I were to say something like y is equal to 3.2, right? And I want to know the type of this. So the type is basically going to tell you what your variable is equal to, right? So this one, it tells you that it's float. What if I said z is equal to hello, right? So print type z. We're going to get string, right? So I can actually make any of these strings, right? Or I could actually make to a float number, right? So watch how I'm going to do this. So print, well, actually, I'm going to make a new variable. We'll call this a, and then we're going to say that we're going to make this a float of x, right? So what you're doing here is when you're saying float right here, you're saying, all right, I want to make this x value into a float. Notice how we established that 2 is going to be an integer. Float, when you're turning this into a float, it's going to make x value a float, right? So if I were to say type a, I'm going to get float. All right. Sound good? I could also make this a string if I would like to, right? And that's going to be a string. So you basically just turn 2 into a string. So why am I explaining this is because it's really important, and also because sometimes when you're doing your print statements, it's not really going to work out the right way you want it to be, because some integers don't really go with strings. So make sure that you know this, because sometimes what I would do in my code is I would turn all the numbers I would get into string values just so it could get executed. All right. The next thing we're going to talk about is if statements, while loops, for loops. So all the good stuff. So this is really where most of coding really depends on. This is like the foundations, right? So if statements are technically a really easy conditional statements, right? So this relies more on on the Boolean part, right? So first it's going to determine if it's true or false, then it's going to execute something, right? Or otherwise it's going to execute something else, right? So I'm going to say, let's just make a code just to kind of say which, if it's a less than or greater than or equal to, right? So let's just say x is equal to 10, y is equal to 20, right? So we're going to say if x is greater than y, we are going to print out, we're going to print less, right? If we're going to elif, right? So elif basically means another statement, right? So elif, if I were to make, if x is equal to y, so notice how I said 2 equal signs. Since we're in a conditional statement, x 2 equal signs basically is validating if y and x are the same. If I were to have equal sign once, that just means that I'm basically assigning y to x, right? Kind of like how we assign variables here. But if I'm saying x is equal to y with two equal signs, that just means that I'm validating if that's true. So print same, or else we are going to, else basically you don't even need really a statement there. You can just print greater, right? All right, so now I can press Shift Enter and see what we get. We get less. So notice how it goes through the code, and it says 10 is less than 20, so obviously we'll get less, right? So now what if we change up these numbers? We're going to say this is 20 and this is going to be 78. No, that doesn't really make sense. We're just going to make this 10. All right, greater, and then 20, same, right? So now let's just choose an x value, right? So we're going to choose. So now we're going to say input x value input y value. So now what is this going to do is we're basically going to choose our x values and y values, and it's going to be more interactive, right? So I can just say this is 45 and this is 23, and we're going to get greater, right? So something easy like that. Next, we'll go into the while loops. So the while loops is more of how it's reiterating on and on, just to make sure that that if you want certain process to be done over and over to make sure that the code is running, you would do that. So an example of that could be something like this, right? A is equal to 5, and we can say A is equal to 5, and B equals to 0. So while B is less than 10, I could say print A, right? And so what is this basically doing right now is I'm saying while this integer B is going variable B is less than 10, right? I'm printing A, right? But it doesn't really know when it ends. So what do you have to do then? Do you guys have any guesses? I haven't been really paying attention to the chat function, my bad. Yeah. But I want someone to take a shot at what you have to do. Someone who's not Thad and Bhakti, because they know. All right. I'll give it 10 seconds. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Exactly, Astro Hamster. I don't know who you are, but it isn't going to be an infinite loop. So what you have to do is you can basically increment B. You can increment B, right? So what are you going to say? You're going to say B equals B plus 1. This, when I first learned coding, I was like, what does that mean, right? But that basically means that, so when you're starting at 0, you're printing 5, and then the next thing you're saying, B, this B right here is going to be 0, and 0 plus 1 is going to be your 1. So when it re-enters into the while loop, it's going to act as 1, right? So let's look at this. So we're going to be basically getting an output of 5 10 times, right? What if I were to just print B, right? You guys would understand that better, right? So notice how it starts at 0, right? Usually we count at 1, but it starts at 0. So that's why you end at 9, but these are 10 integers, right? This is really important to know that Python starts at 0. Well, to be honest, all languages start at 0, or most. I don't want to kind of say something wrong, but when you look at like sets, tuples, lists, and stuff like that, you're going to be looking at index numbers that start at 0, right? And I'll talk about that more soon, all right? So the next thing we want to talk about is a for loop. So a for loop is typically, it's more like a concise version of a while loop, right? So here, let me drop an example for you guys to understand. So what if I set C is equal to 20 and I make D is equal to 3, right? And for X in range D, I'm going to print out C. So let me explain what I just typed, right? So I'm saying, well, for any for loop, you're basically making one variable inside a range, right? So X is, in this case, is not defined. So I could basically say for X in range D, which is 3. So I'm basically going to get C 3 times, right? So let's see if this works. Right. So I'm going to get 3 times, I'm going to get 20 3 times, because it's basically saying I'm initializing in a for loop an x variable, which is a non-used variable. And I'm saying that in this loop of 3 integers or 3 numbers, I want to basically print 3, right? It's essentially making like a whole structure for you, and it's also incrementing it by yourself, right? So yeah. Let me just check if there's any questions on that. What does range mean? So range basically means that it's like saying, well, I hope I could edit on this. Let me see if I could see. A range basically means, have you ever taken I don't know, a geometry class? No, not geometry, algebra. Yeah, so dumb. Algebra class, right? So when you're taking I don't know, isn't your range supposed to be something from like a y value? So I could say basically my range is from -infinity to infinity, right? If the linear line is existing, right? So a range basically means it's just a certain, I guess you could say a path, right? Or you could say a certain spots that are in an integer. So if I were to say that d is equal to, let's just clear all my drawings, right? So if I were to say d is equal to 3, I'm basically saying that in three spots, I'm filling it with whatever the print statement is, or I'm basically saying that this needs to loop 3 times. All right, I think that makes better sense. This needs to loop a certain amount of times. So d is basically saying, all right, for x in range blank, that number is going to be the number of times it's going to be looping. Does that make sense, Pranay? Yeah. Yeah. All right, cool. All right. So yeah. Next thing we're going to talk about is modules. So modules are widely used. In Java, I learned it as methods, but when I was learning Python, they called it modules. But I still call it, to the day, I call it methods, right? Essentially, what a module does is that you can basically create a set of a line of code, and you can execute it whenever you want, however you want. So I'll give you an example, right? So let's just say define. So def is means define, right? And we're making a method here called it hi, and then we're going to say our parameter. So inside this parentheses, I'm basically saying what needs to be put in here, right? So in this case, I'm calling the whole project hi, but inside I'm calling it name, because this is what we really need, or this is what the code really needs, right? So we're gonna put this colon, and I'm gonna say print hello plus name plus exclamation point, right? So what this means is that I'm going to have hello and then whatever the name is and an exclamation point, right? So let's just go out, and then now we're going to have a name equals input in quotations, what's your name? So let's just pick a random name from the participant list. So who's the lucky one today? So we're gonna say hi in parentheses name. All right. So shift enter. So it says, what's your name? I'm gonna use someone else's name because I'm too bored of using my name. All right. I see Hani Remtula. Hani Remtula. Right? So it says, hello, Hani Remtula. So you guys see how you can execute this, right? So I could also say, hi, I don't know, let's do someone else. I see Faraz. So, hi, Faraz. Well, here, you're not going to get Faraz is not defined. So why is that, right? Let's just redo that. because you need to use it in a same code, right? So now when you were to do hi in name, right? So this is not running. Hold up. I just got lines of error message. It just basically means that the code stopped. So if I were to do that, yeah. All right, well, let's try that again. I keep getting the same message. All right, let's retry this. All right, so now I'm gonna do Faraz, and I'm gonna get hello Faraz. All right, so you guys get the whole point of modules. You're basically defining a set of lines of code, and you're basically going to be using it in terms of referring back to that code. Usually it's a good practice to kind of make a line of code which is more direct, something like this. And once you get more used to it and start making modules, it's going to be more concise with your code. So when you're actually coding lines of code, it's going to be more concise. And when you're entering into your main method, it's just going to be certain parameters you're entering, and your whole code does the work for you, right? Whereas you don't have to enter. So now let's talk about more into data structures, right? So data structures, I mean, I'm talking about lists. I'm talking about tuples. I'm talking about dictionaries. I'm talking about sets, right? So what are these, right? So a list is basically a set of objects in it, right? So what do I mean by objects? Is just either strings, integers, whatever it is, right? So let's start off with a list, right? So I can say, all right, here it's just going to be a bunch of fruits, oranges, apples, mangoes, right? So if I were to print this, print list 1, I'm going to get oranges, apples, and mangoes, right? What if I wanted to add more things to the list, right? So I could basically add to the list something like list1.append. So append is known as for adding, right? So I could say something like blueberries, right? So now what's going to happen is when I print my list1, I'm going to get blueberries added to the list, right? I could also find the length of my list, right? So using the len method, I could say len list1, right? So it tells me I have 4 objects inside, right? Oranges, apples, and mangoes, blueberries. So I have 4 of them. What if I want to refer to something, right? So remember how I said, remember Python starts at 0. So here you're actually saying that each of these objects are assigned an invisible index number, right? So Python recognizes them as a certain index number. So oranges starts at 0, so that's like the index number. Apples starts at 1, mango starts at 2, blueberries is 3, right? So it goes on like that. So if I were to refer to some object, right, I could say print list1 in brackets, square brackets, I can just say 2, right? And what am I going to get? I'm going to get mangoes, right? So that means this is 0, 1, and 2, right? So I could also say print list from list1 from 1 to 3, right? So what does this mean is that I don't want my first number, I don't want my first one, I just want to know my 1, my index number 1, 2, 3, right? So notice what happens. Will I get my blueberries? No, I won't, right? So what does this basically means is that I'm just only getting 2 of the numbers. It's just kind of setting up a bound, right? So it's gonna include the index number 1, but it's not gonna include your last index number, right? So apple and mangoes. So what if I said to 4? I'm gonna get my blueberries now, All right. Let's see. And then I have my remove function, right? So my remove is basically list1 dot remove at, I could say, I don't know, choose oranges, right? So I could basically remove oranges from here, right? So my oranges is now gone. So now let's print list1. What do we have in our list? We just have apple, mangoes, and blueberries. So notice how oranges is gone, right? So we basically removed something off my list, right? So what differs? Well, let's talk about tuples first, right? So going into tuples, call this a tuple. So tuple, notice how we started with our list with square brackets. With tuples, it's usually in parentheses. So I can, inside the parentheses, I can say, I don't know, Taco Bell. I've been craving Taco Bell so much. It's not even a joke. Pizza Hut. Domino's, Papa John's, right? So this a tuple is basically inside the parentheses, right? And when you print the tuple out, you're going to get basically a similar type of output as what you got for a list, but inside this is going to be in parentheses, right? So what really differs from a tuple to a list, right? Basically, a list is more interactive. You can work more with it, and it could you can basically change however way you want it, right? But a tuple, it's kind of hard because sometimes tuple cannot really be changed. You can't add to anything to tuples. But one way you can add to a tuple is basically converting this tuple into a list and then changing that list and then converting it back to tuple, right? So let's just see what would happen if I were to do tuple 1 and what is my index number, right? So I can say print, I'm just going to make our tuple 1 equal to, let's just change it to Livingston Dining Hall. By the way, if any freshmen who are incoming freshmen, just know that Broward Dining Hall is the best one. The other people could speak for it. Yeah. So here we get an error message, right? So in the error message, we say tuple does not support item assignment, right? So what does that mean? It basically means that you cannot really add to a tuple, right? So don't add, don't remove to the tuple. You can't really do that. But let's convert this into a list. So how are we going to do that? So we're going to make this tuple, no, not tuple 2. Let's just call this, I don't know, list 2, right? So list 2, and we're going to make this into a tuple. So list is basically, it's kind of like you're casting the tuple, right? By the way, I was a joke freshman. I'm kidding. Broward is the worst dining hall. So yeah. Print list 2. Right. Right. So now you have Taco Bell, Pizza Hut, Domino's, and notice the difference between these two outputs, right? One is a normal parentheses, and the other one is a square brackets, right? So you already know that this one, the second output, is the list 2. You're basically made this into a list, right? So now I can basically say, all right, list 2 dot append. I don't know. Let's just put Livingston Dining Hall again. Then we're going to print the list 2. So what are we going to get? We're going to get Livingston Dining Hall added to it. And now we're going to make this tuple 1 equal to a tuple. We're going to cast it into a list 2. So notice what we're going to do here. We basically converted this back to tuple. And now I'm going to say print tuple 1, right? Have the parentheses around it. That's really useful. All right. So yeah, so now see what happens. You basically converted this into a tuple, right? So yeah, let's see if there's anything I'm missing out. Oh yeah, I could also check if there's something, right? So I could say print if I could say Taco Bell in tuple 1, right? So I'm going to get a true statement, right? So this is basically validating if my certain object that I'm referring to, in this case, I'm referring to Taco Bell, I'm basically saying if Taco Bell's even in the tuple, right? So when it returns true, I'm saying, all right, well, it's saying that, yes, it is in the tuple 1. What if I said, I don't know, something like Brower, right? I'm going to get false because it doesn't even recognize what that is in the tuple, right? So yeah, going in, and there's also something like delete. You can also delete the tuple 1. So what does that mean? Is that you basically just deleted your tuple. You don't even need the parentheses in this case, right? So now you deleted your tuple. So if I were to say print tuple 1, I'm supposed to expect. Am I supposed to expect this whole thing repeat again? No, I'm not. I'm going to get my error message, right? It says tuple 1 is not defined. All right. So that's what, yeah, tuples, that's what tuple is. It's really, I would say tuple is really powerful. A lot of professionals work on tuples a lot. It's a really powerful tool. And also it's an important data structure. Going into the next part is dictionaries, right? So dictionaries, let me see how I'm doing on the time. Oh, this is 1 hour. My bad. Going into, so for dictionaries, I'm going to try to wrap it up really quick. So for dictionaries, it's really, it's more of indexing a certain data structure, right? So here, we can talk about, all right, dict1 equals, we're going to have curly braces to represent this, and then we're going to say, all right, name Shriven, comma, college, Rutgers, right, university. Yeah, I don't even really need that. So I can just say major, right? So what if I said print dict1, right? So now I'm going to get my whole series of dictionary right here. So what if I want to refer to a certain element? I can basically say, all right, name. I'm going to get Shriven, right? Or if I were to say major, my major is finance. I'm going to make sure it's precise, right? Finance. So yeah. A quick going into dictionaries. I could also use a for loop to kind of represent different all the categories inside, right? So I can say print X. So what is that going to give me? It's going to give me my name, my college, my major. So that's just naming all the categories. What if I want to name all my values inside the categories, right? Right. So now I'm going to get Shriven, Rutgers, finance, right? So that's just kind of referring to my all the objects that I refer to my index numbers. All right. So I really want to wrap this up because I'm running pretty fast on time here. I mean, short on time here. It's because yeah, and a quick thing I do want to talk about is import, right? The import feature. So over the quarantine, during the quarantine, I've been working on a project. It's a GPA calculator I made. So what an import feature does is that you can basically make a text file and you can save it in .py in a Python format, and you can import it in any document you want, right? So let's just say you're a sophomore, right? And you have 36 credits finished, right? And you know that next semester is going to be online, so you're just making sure like your assumptions on how your GPA might end up after your next semester, right? So you have 36 credits and your cumulative points. So these cumulative points, you can find them on your transcript, right? So let me just, I'm going to make this a multi-line text. So you have 36 credits, and you have, I don't know, let's just say you have 204 cumulative points, right? And with that, this upcoming semester, you are taking 19 credits, and that's like 6 classes, right? So 6 classes. So what this GPA calculator does is that it basically tells me what my GPA is, right? So let's see what happens. So I'm going to say my last term cumulative points, credits is 36, and 204 is my cumulative points. And this upcoming semester, I'm going to be taking 19 credits, right? And how many classes am I taking? I'm taking 6 classes, right? So how many credits is class 1? Let's just say that class 1 is going to be 3. So all of these credits need to add up to whatever how many credits you're taking, or else it's going to return a negative number or a false value, right? So what grade did I get? I basically coded this in a way where I'm just going to get either, I can put an A or capital A, whatever I want, right? So let's just say I got an A on this one. And the next one is I have 4 credits on this. That's just, let's just say I got an A on this one too. And the next one I got 3 credits. I put B+. I got a B+ on this one. And 3 on this one. I got an A and 3 credits on this one. And let's just say what happens if I get a C+ in this one, right? And 3 credits on this one. And to end off, I'll get a B, right? So my cumulative GPA for this entire thing, I get a 4.925. So that just means that we went something wrong. What do we do here? It probably didn't add up to 19. But your GPA for this semester is 3.526. Oh, well, that's just pretty bad because I think 204, the cumulative points, I just made up a random assumption. So let me restart the whole kernel here. No, it's not running. Import GPA calc. All right, what's happening? All right, I think, yeah, there you go, it's working. So let's just redo this again really quick. So let's just make this 108, right? So that would be a good assumption, right? So now you get a 3.0, and I'm taking 19 credits. I'm taking 6 classes. In this class, I'm getting 3. Credits is class 1. It's A. What grade did I get? And then I got 3 on this one, A on this one, 3 on this one, A, and then 4 credits on this one, B+, and then credits is 3, B on this one, and 3, and let's just get, I got a C+. Right. So now it tells me my GPA is a 3.17, and for the semester I got a 3.5, right? It's more a reasonable estimate. Sorry about that. But yeah, it was a quick typo I made. But yeah, the example itself, I kind of chose the wrong numbers, but otherwise, that's how the code works. I'm still in the talks, me and my team, about hosting a workshop where you guys can actually build this by yourselves and kind of make it more interactive, where we can start from the ground and just build a whole GPA calculator. I don't know. What do you guys think about that? Yeah, that's a pretty cool idea. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, we're just thinking about doing that, and that's still in the talks, but hopefully we'll get something to work on that. In this PowerPoint, this is a quick math operator, so that's like the math thing that we go back. And yeah, to end up, thank you guys so much for staying this long. I actually was expecting this meeting to be 45 minutes on the max, but it looks like I took a whole hour. So sorry. Um, I haven't taken Foundation, Simran, but yeah, I'm actually going to be taking Foundations this semester, upcoming semester. But all I know is that you should be just practice Python for now. I think what really makes it hard in terms of even learning Python is really the part um, about coding, whereas syntax is really easy to learn. One resource I do recommend all of you guys to take part is W3 Schools. .org, and that really does a good job of explaining you different types of all the syntax for Python and stuff like that. But yeah, feel free to reach out to me. Either my email or my Facebook. You can direct message me on there, and make sure you guys follow the Instagram page for Rutgers Bits. We definitely try hard to make sure that you guys have fun events like this and informational ones. Yeah. But otherwise, you guys are free to leave, and you're welcome. Thank you so much.